Joining us today is someone who truly needs no introduction. And I say that mostly because if I gave him an introduction that would do him justice, it would take our entire 30 minutes.
Yes.
Our leader today is Lee Fisher, the 10th president of Baldwin Wallace University. Just a couple of quick highlights because I know he's really going to focus his remarks on what's happening at BW. But before he arrived on campus last summer at Baldwin Wallace University, some of his highlights include spending 9 years leading Cleveland State University's College of Law, where we called him Dean, in addition to being a professor there. He served 18 years in a variety of state elected public office positions, including Ohio Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor, and state representative. He also worked in private practice in two different go-arounds with the Cleveland law firm Hahn Lozier. He also served as the CEO for two different nonprofits, the Center for Families and Children, now the Centers, and also CEOs for Cities. And perhaps most notable of all, although I have yet to see it published in any of his official biographies, as Attorney General Lee Fisher, he gave one Becky Rupert, a newly minted lawyer, her very first job way back in 1993. So, President Fisher, I have to say, without you, who knows where I would be today? So, without further delay, please join me in welcoming Baldwin Wallace University President Lee Fisher.
Well, Becky, thank you. That's a wonderful introduction. And by the way, I am going to add that to my resume and put it right at the top. But I will tell you that as far as I'm concerned, what you have done, not only at the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, but now at the Cleveland Leadership Center, is amazing. It's a wonderful organization, and you're taking it to a whole new level, and your team as well. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. Building what's next is what we have in common.
I like that. I like that. Well, what I want to talk about for the next few minutes is my perspective after just a little bit more than 6 months as the president of Baldwin Wallace. And I want to begin by saying that I still have a lot to learn. Even though I've had a full career in the private sector and the public sector and the nonprofit sector, and now in the academic sector, I realize every day how much more I have to learn from people who are on this call today and from other people. And so I begin this call with a lot of humility. And I want to begin also with explaining that we're in a perfect storm. And when I say a perfect storm, this slide just sort of typifies where we are in terms of higher education today. I think most of you are aware of the fact that we're facing a demographic cliff where the population of college-age students is rapidly shrinking because of the birth rates that went down starting back in the 2008-2009 recession. Many of those students are deciding not to go to college, but instead either to get a 2-year degree or in many cases get a credential and go right into the workforce. Costs are rising. There is some skepticism about the value of a 4-year degree, despite the fact that the evidence has not changed. And that is that over the course of your lifetime, you are likely to earn approximately $1 million more than you would if you just had a high school degree. Technology obviously is moving at lightning speed, and public trust in higher education generally is low. But despite all those headwinds, I am an optimist by nature, and I think it's fair to say that we were founded on optimism. You're looking at a slide now of John Baldwin, who founded Baldwin Wallace back more than 180 years ago in 1845. He bought a little plot of land in what we now call Berea, 5 minutes from the Cleveland airport, 1 minute from the Cleveland Brown headquarters. And he was walking across his land one day, saw a pile of rocks that most of us would simply pass right by. He saw something different, though. When he lifted some of these rocks in his hands, it rubbed off. It turned out to be sandstone. He decided maybe there's something I can do with this. And to make a very long story very short, he turned them into grindstones, made a fortune by putting those grindstones as the foundation of buildings that now are all around the world, including on our beautiful campus. And I've always said that if you change the way that you look at things, the things that you will look at change. And that's exactly what he did. And that's exactly what we need to be doing, probably in all our lives, but particularly in higher education. And that is just simply change the way that we look at things, because I think if we do that, we can see lots of optimism. when Peggy's and our son Jason graduated from college. We asked him what did he wanted to do with his life, and what he said, I thought at the moment was unique, but it turns out that he's really was not unique. He typifies the generation of students that we're educating today at Baldwin Wallace. And he said, what I want to do hasn't been invented yet. Turns out he did invent his career, but what he really was saying is that we're educating students today for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't yet been invented to solve problems that even the smartest people in the world don't know are problems. It's a challenge, but more so it's an opportunity. But it means we have to change the way we deliver. I like to say that I've discovered over the years, after having been born and raised here in Cleveland, that I think I've discovered Cleveland's secret sauce, and it's hiding in plain sight. And our secret sauce is, in fact, not just Baldwin Wallace, but it's all the institutions, 2-year and 4 years in Northeast Ohio, some of whom, by the way, are represented on this call today. And what I mean by that is, I think if you go back and think about secret sauce, it really means what's the key to economic success? And economists have said for a long time, it comes down to one primary measurement, and that's per capita income. How much did the average citizen earn? And it's very clear. There's a direct correlation between higher education and earnings. And it's called the talent dividend. And the key to our success, I think, in our state, in our region, in our city, is developing a talent pipeline that's going to stay in Ohio, that's going to stay in Northeast Ohio, and that is educated so that it fits with the needs of our employers. A good example of that is what we've done right here at Baldwin Wallace with Sherwin-Williams. We've developed a robust internship program and a partnership with them, working with Team Neo and JobsOhio. And it's not unique, but it is the future of higher education to do what we've done by we call it a career accelerator program, what we're doing with other employers in Cleveland as well, so that these employers know that there's a customized workforce being educated in our higher education ecosystem all throughout Cuyahoga County. But it also means that what each of us has to do at each of our institutions is make sure that our students are ready. So at Baldwin Wallace, we say Baldwin Wallace is about getting better at who you are, so you get better at what you do to make your path to a better world. What do I mean by that? Well, bottom line is that we want every student to know that they are unique in their own right and that we're accepting them for who they are. But the purpose of being at Baldwin Wallace is to get better at what you do. Because if you get better at what you do, and you're better at who you are, the two are directly related. So in other words, research shows that when you get better at who you are, you get better at what you do. And that is, in a sense, the premise of who we are at Baldwin Wallace. So it means that we want to graduate students who are leader ready, who are career ready, and who are future ready. And when I say leader ready, what I mean is making sure that it starts with character building, understanding that character is at the center of leadership. And so we have a focus on that at our institution, and also leadership skills that cut across the curriculum. So whether you're a major in music or music theater, or whether it's business, or whether it's biology, life sciences, the STEM disciplines, you're going to have a set of leadership skills that enable you to go anywhere you want. Because when I talk to employers and I ask them what they're looking for, sometimes they'll say they're looking for a particular discipline, but more often they're looking for the soft skills that actually are hard skills. Resilience, teamwork, collaboration, project management, all the things that make you leader ready. We also are focusing on graduating students who are career ready, meaning that we don't just open minds, but we open doors through meaningful connections to employers and alumni and mentors and hands-on experiences. We, for example, are one of the few colleges and universities that actually require a number of hours of experiential learning, and we're proud of that. We consider it not a requirement, but really an opportunity for our students to establish connections, mentors, both not only on campus, but in the community, so that they actually, when they graduate, are much more likely to stay in Northeast Ohio and more likely also to have those skills that our employers are looking for. And then finally, graduating students who are future ready. And that means AI literate, it means financially literate, it means actively engaged citizens. This is easier said than done, but in the end, it's the ecosystem that's the most important. So whether it's Cuyahoga Community College or Lorraine Community College, whether it's Cleveland State or Case Western, whether it's John Carroll or Ursuline, all of us are in this together. And no one of us can solve this talent pipeline problem alone. We have to do it in a coordinated way. Right now, there are about 40 to 50,000 unfilled jobs every year right here in Northeast Ohio, in lots of sectors, including healthcare and professional services and manufacturing. And so I would argue that it's not really public versus private. It's not really 2-year versus 4-year. In a sense, it's Northeast Ohio versus the future. And our region's success is going to come not just from any one higher education institution, but acting like a system. So that's what I mean when I say secret sauce. So I'm ready for your questions. I'm used to giving longer talks, but I sort of like this shorter talk because it gives us more time to get into the Q&A. So Becky, I'm ready.
I love it. Fabulous. And I'll just remind everybody, if you've got questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat and we'll get through as many as we can. So Lee, I would love to start. You mentioned that you have a lot to learn, right? With as much experience as you bring to the table, diversity in every respect. You mentioned that you have a lot to learn. And I'm betting that some of that learning in the first 6 to 9 months has been about talking with people and meeting with people and listening. I'm interested, what has surprised you in terms of what you have been hearing or what you've been learning? And are there some particular themes that have emerged as you've been meeting with students and faculty and alumni and more?
Well, Becky, first let me sort of describe what I've done in my first 6 months, particularly as it relates to better understanding the BW culture and getting to know the BW students. One of the first commitments I made, for example, is that I would sleep over in a dorm. So I did that. That was an experience in of itself. I forgot to tell all the students in the dorm that I would be there. So at 3 in the morning, when I'm going to the men's room, there were a couple of students in shock. But it was a wonderful experience for me to be able to get inside the head of a student and see what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. We have, as you probably know, a internationally known music theater program. So I also volunteered to be in a play. I was regretting that a couple days before the play because instead of having a couple lines, I had 7 pages of lines. But I got through it. And it's another way of saying that it's not just enough to walk the campus. I think you have to actually be part of the student experience. And that's what I've tried to do. I think one of the things that I've learned is that the students want to know that you care about their future, not just now, but after they graduate. They also want to know that that certificate that they're going to get when they walk across the stage is going to not just be a piece of paper, but a certificate of skills. And so they want to know that I understand that we can use our connections, our faculty's connections to the community to connect them to that community right now, not their senior year, but even their freshman year. And they're also looking to know that they've got support, that people have their back. This is a generation that has spent a lot of time on a screen. And so they want that personal connection. I think they're starving for that personal connection. So making sure that we have the mental health supports, making sure that we've got the advising supports, and that every faculty member, every staff member knows that we want to have every student's back and make the students feel that way. Not to coddle them, but to support them to bring out who they are and to get better at who they are.
I can only imagine that hallway look that you got at 3 a.m. in that dorm. I'm just saying, yeah, that would be a shock. So I'm interested, you've talked a lot about what you're hearing from students and what you're doing to meet the needs and the interests of the students, not just today, but into the future. What are you hearing from the faculty and the staff? Transitions in leadership, particularly a president of a university, that's a big change. So what are you hearing from the faculty and staff about what's on their mind, what they're thinking about, and what the future looks like from their perspective?
I think faculty and staff, more than anything, want a vision of a future. They want to know that there's a path forward. Every university and college in the country is facing a set of financial challenges. I just came back from a conference of about 150 presidents of private colleges in particular. And when someone asked, how many of you are facing financial challenges, you're not going to be surprised to hear 150 hands went up. So that causes anxiety. among faculty. It causes anxiety among students, less students probably, but certainly faculty and staff. And so one of the first things I did was when I spoke back in August to all our faculty and staff, I laid out, where does our money come from? What are our revenue sources? How do we spend our money? Try to pull back the curtain and better understand what the finances are, what the financial challenges are, but also what the financial opportunities are as well. And I think that as we're doing that and charting a path forward, we call it our transformation action plan, people are beginning to see that they can see their future. You know, I often have told the story, Becky, about Peggy's father, my father-in-law, Mike Zone, who was a prisoner of war. And the way he survived is that he had a diary where he actually could survive when younger men and stronger men could not, because he basically talked about the children he would raise someday and the pasta recipes that he could somehow taste. And what I'm getting at is that he could do something that other men could not. He could see his future. And I've come to believe that the greatest gift you can give to anybody, whether it's a child, whether it's a family, whether it's a state, or in this case, an organization like Baldwin Wallace, is the ability to see your own future at times when they're tough. That keeps you going. That gives you that sense of realistic optimism. And that's what I'm focused on with our faculty and staff, that they have this sense of realistic optimism, that the financial challenges aren't going to be solved today or tomorrow, but that we have relentless optimism that we're going to actually not just survive. That's barely what we should be thinking about. We should be talking about sort of thriving. And that's exactly what we do because of this plan that we put together. And we've unveiled that plan to our faculty and staff.
So Baldwin Wallace stands at a time where Ohio has so many different colleges and universities. And then you go beyond Ohio and there are even more opportunities. So I'm curious, how do you see that BW differentiates itself in a crowded higher education marketplace today? And what's your vision for what, say, 10 years from now will look different in terms of how it differentiates itself?
Well, I think it's fair to say that every college and university is trying to differentiate themselves both in a vertical way and in a horizontal way. And what do I mean by that? Well, think of the verticals as, for example, our Conservatory of Performing Arts, or our athletics, or our STEM disciplines, or our sports management programs. We want to make sure that we understand that we no longer can be all things to all people. But what we want to do in those verticals, we want to be the best. We want to be the best in sports management. We want to have one of the best conservatories in the nation. We want to have one of the best STEM disciplines. And that means investing. You don't just cut your way to prosperity, you also grow and invest. So we're looking to identify through a process that we call academic optimization. Where are we strongest? And where can we get even stronger? Where can we strengthen our strengths so that when people think of BW, they think of business, they think of D3 athletics, they think of a Conservatory of Performing Arts. They think of the life sciences, the health sciences, the STEM disciplines. And it's not just because they think about them, but because we've proven our worth, because we've actually invested in them. And then there's the horizontals that I talked about earlier. What are the things that no matter what you major in, are going to be differentiating BW from others? And that is the leader ready, career ready, future ready. If you do just one of those things and not the other, you don't differentiate. But if you can differentiate vertically and horizontally, then I think there's a great path to thrive.
So as you think about that differentiation into the future, you mentioned already experiential learning being a key piece of the Baldwin Wallace experience. Are you, and you mentioned Sherwin-Williams as a great example in collaboration with Team No. Are there other experiential learning opportunities or internships or employer partnerships or industry partnerships that are on the table today that you're thinking about for the future?
Well, yes, we're meeting with employers all the time. And although I'm not going to talk about any specific ones today because most of them are either in the work or in the process of enhancing them, I think it's fair to say that we're matching up our strengths with those employers and we're sitting down with them and saying, what do you need? Quick story on that, Becky. When I was served as Lieutenant Governor and Director of Economic Development for the state, there was a company called Amlin that wanted to come to Ohio, but I should say they wanted to come to one of 5 states, and Ohio was in the running. And the way we convinced them to come to Ohio was not through tax credits or loans. It was because we sat down with them for 2 full days and we said, what is it that you need in your workforce? And then we worked with the colleges and universities in the region where they wanted to locate. And we put together actually curriculum that fit their needs. So in a sense, that's what we're doing here today at BW. We're trying to customize our curriculum to the extent it's possible to the workforce needs of employers throughout the nation, but particularly right here in our backyard of Northeast Ohio, because 80% or more of our students are staying right here in Northeast Ohio. We're one of the most reliable talent pipelines there is in the state.
Yeah, yeah. How can the people who are joining us today live and then those that are going to watch this in the replay, how can they help you in this effort?
There's lots of ways they can help. I would not be a good president if I didn't begin by saying, please make a contribution. And you can split your contribution between us and the Cleveland Leadership Center if you want, but please make a contribution to BW because fundraising has never been more important for all our institutions. We can't do it alone. Given the fact that enrollment's going down, we have to supplement our tuition revenue with the revenue from people who support our mission. And although that often is people who are alumni, the good news is that we have friends all throughout the community who are not alumni, but who see the value in investing in BW. Another way you can help is if you're an employer on this call and we don't currently have a relationship with you, it's not because we don't want one. It's because either we haven't done a good enough job of reaching out or we haven't got to you yet. So if you could contact us and say, hey, we would love to have a better relationship with you so you can help us, it's a win-win. So those are two ways, I think, in particular, that those who are on this call can help us. And of course, we want in turn to help them by making their organization stronger by supplying that talent that we think we can educate right here and that we know we can educate right here at BW.
Yeah. So one of your earlier comments focused on declining public trust in higher education. And one of our viewers is asking, what are some tangible actions that university leadership, faculty, and other stakeholders can take to rebuild that trust, not just here regionally, but across the state and nationwide?
Well, I think that it does begin with better explaining the value of a college degree. And I'm referring now both to the 2-year degree and the 4-year degree, not just one or the other. And making the clear connection, the return on investment. There is a generation perhaps that went to college for education's sake. And that still should be one of the good reasons to go to college, but it's not a sufficient reason. Today, I think parents and students want that return on investment. So we need to do a better job of explaining that return on investment. That not only is your child more likely to get a job, they're more likely to build a career and a set of skills that can take them anywhere they want. And as a result, because of the research that is really not in controversy, shows that the earning potential of those students are going to go up exponentially. I think the other thing is to show the research that shows that it's not just benefiting the student, it's benefiting the entire community, benefiting the entire region. In a sense, your neighbor's education determines your salary in the sense that it's a rising tide that lifts all boats. So we also need to do a better job of communicating to our entire community, in particular our employers, that the advantage of supporting our higher education institutions is not just benefiting our graduates, it's not even just benefiting the employers, it's benefiting the economy of the entire region. And finally, recognizing that we've got to be humble. We have to stop acting like we're the smartest people in the room, and that education is about learning. It's not being the smartest person in the room, but it's about curiosity and always wanting to find new ideas, new solutions, new problems. And that is part of education too. And I think that will get rid of or at least address the issue that some people think higher education is somehow elitist. Oh, we can't act like elites because we're not elites. We simply are giving students an opportunity to get better at who they are by gaining more knowledge and using those skills to make a better world.
Yeah. So another question relates to the fact that colleges and universities are often not only the largest employers in a given community, but also large landowners. And so question, what do you see as the responsibility of an a university or college in regards to being a valuable neighbor to their immediate communities in which they work and live?
Oh, it's very important. It's why one of the first people I met with was Cyril Kleem, who's the mayor of Berea. It's why I stay in touch with our county executive, Chris Ronayne, and our Cleveland mayor, Justin Bibb. It's why I stay in touch with all of our elected officials, because I think it's understand that we can't just be confined to our own campus, and that we need to find ways that we can actually contribute back to the community. And so I do that on a regular basis. I'm meeting, for example, I've had a number of meetings just with the citizens of Berea to say, how can we help you? How can we give you more access to our education? Some of those adults who didn't get a college education, or even if they did, want to continue to learn. I think that also gets at the whole issue of public trust. If we act as if somehow we're these isolated, elitist, confined campuses, we're missing one of the great values we can bring back, and that is create this partnership with the general community. It's why it's also important that college presidents be on the boards of places like Playhouse Square or Team Leo, or that at least we're participating in those organizations as well, so that we're part of the bigger piece of the economic future, not just of the city, but of the entire region.
Yeah. Uh, Question about artificial intelligence. So it was actually my second to last question, and somebody just popped one in the chat that's similar. What is BW thinking about in terms of the intersection of education and AI? Technology disruption? Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? What are you thinking? How are you dealing with what is changing literally minute by minute in the AI arena?
Well, I suppose it's all of the above, but I view it more as an opportunity than I do a threat. I think when it first came to the fore, it was viewed by much in the higher education community as a threat. It was sort of a narrow view. Are students going to use this to cheat? I think that's the wrong way to look at AI. I think we need to look at it as a force multiplier, to take what we already do and to do it better. Yes, there are ethical concerns. Yes, there are ways it can be abused, and we obviously have to be focusing on that. We put together, as soon as I started, a presidential task force on AI, where we're bringing our faculty together to explore different ways we can use AI to do a better job of teaching in the classroom, but also taking a look at the entire organization and see if we can use it in ways to create more efficiencies and cost savings, and to create more opportunities. So it goes beyond prompts and being able to write a good letter or to give a good answer. It's really trying to figure out ways we can actually make this a better institution. And as you say, it's changing by the day. But I want to make sure that every one of our students graduates AI literate, with the understanding that the way we define AI literate is going to change very quickly, and we got to move with it. And the definition changes, then the way we incorporate AI into the institution will have to change as well.
For sure, for sure. All right, my last question. You are at a point in your career where you and the First Lady, who I want to thank, Peggy Zone Fisher, for joining us today. You are both at a point in your lives where you have achieved so much together, across every sector. And instead of taking a step back and to breathe and to enjoy time, you have leaned in to taking on perhaps one of the boldest, biggest opportunities of your career. And bottom line, I would love to know why, Lee? Why now, and why this opportunity?
Well, first, I don't think I could do it without Peggy. She served for 18 years as president and CEO of the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio. And it just my good fortune that she decided to make a transition at the time I did this, because if she were doing that full time today, although the Diversity Center might benefit, I'm not sure I could do this job. It's really a two-person job. It really is. And Peggy is all in. And because I'm the introvert in the family and she's the extrovert, she's actually probably doing a better job, and she's better known on this campus probably than I am in some ways. And I'm not being facetious. That actually is quite true. So, but I think your real question is, why would we do this at a time when many people our age are retiring? And the answer is that, it's what makes us who we are. It's in the DNA of the Zone family and the Fisher family of public service and giving back. And we feel like we still have more to give. And we want to continue to do that in every way we can. And so right now, to me, there is no greater calling in the world than to be part of those who are helping educate a new generation of leaders. I'm not suggesting that the only way you can do that is higher education, but I do think the best way you can do that is in education, and at least in this case, higher education. So it's my way of giving back, and Peggy's way of giving back, and doing it, we think, in a very meaningful way, focused on the next generation.